This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Hello, college sports fans, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Primetime Podcast here on the MVP Network. My name is Ricky Widmer, and for the first time ever, I'm joined with the Brandon Swanson.
Hey, everybody, let's get rocking and rolling.
And we got to spend a little bit here, Brandon, because I say it's your first time, but it's not really your first time being on the MVP Network, because you used to be on the show way back when it was just the onside kick.
I remember those days.
Before the MVP Network ever existed, before the onside kick was even just a football podcast, I remember me, Brandon, and Dave just started it all. It was starting it all. Now you're back. The prodigal son has returned. We're here to talk college sports. We're going to have a little football and basketball for you guys in this first episode. And we're going to start on the gridiron, the football field, because tomorrow, as we're recording this podcast on Sunday, Everett Golson, you can say former Notre Dame Fighting Irish quarterback, is going to make a decision, Brandon. And the three top dogs, well, one of them being a dog in Georgia, Alabama, Florida State, are the teams that are in contention to get him. However, it looks like people are saying, you know what? He may go from a Fighting Irish to a Seminole.
Yeah, I'm interested. I'm very interested. He is supposed to make his decision tomorrow. And I just think that wherever he goes, I don't know if he's going to significantly make that team better. If he goes to Florida State and he's with Jimbo Fisher, who's come out and said things already about Jameis Winston now that he's gone, I think that you look at Jameis and the style of play that he had. He was a very, very much so a pocket passer. Pocket quarterback. He wasn't going to run. The pregnant man was going nowhere.
Well, he was more pocket, I would say more pocket in his second year than his first year.
Yeah, definitely.
His first year,
he grew into it.
He was a little bit more mobile. Not the mobile guy like a Marcus Mariota where he could take off and run, but he'd move a little bit to sling it down the field.
Yeah, he would.
Get it down the field.
Everett Golson isn't necessarily, I mean, he can do it, but he loves to... He loves to be flushed from the pocket. He loves throwing on the run, getting out of the pocket, running down the field. He thrives at doing that. But ultimately, my main point that I want to make today is I do not see him making the team that he goes for significantly better. I just don't see it.
So like a Florida State, you don't see him coming in and being the next Jameis Winston?
No, I do not. I do not.
See, and that's the one, if he goes to Florida State, let's say the reports are true, he's not going to throw a curveball at us, not going to be like most of the high school recruits where it's like, yeah, he could go here, he's going here, and then, I'm going to grab the hat, no, I'm grabbing another one, here I go. Let's assume he goes to Florida State. He's not going to be the next Jameis Winston, and I think fans, some of them may be like, cool, we went from EJ to Jameis, now we're going from Jameis to Everett. The train keeps on rolling. Well, guess what? It may not keep rolling like it did. Don't expect to go back to the college football playoff. It's funny. It's great to be able to say that for the second year in a row. Don't expect to go back to the college football playoff just because you got Golson right behind center.
I wouldn't expect it at all. I mean, you have to look at what Notre Dame did. And I guess, part of it might be the head coach.
Did go to a national championship against Bama. Throwing that out there.
And then we saw what happened there.
Well, I mean, that whole year, it wasn't just Golson. That was the Manti Te'o year. And that defense was good. I think the defense was the best part of the Fighting Irish that year. And, I mean, Florida State, are they going to be a good team next year? Yes. Are they going to be college football playoff good? I don't know.
Well, if they are college football playoff good, I don't think it's because
of
Everett Golson did it. I don't think it's because Everett Golson took them there. And everyone might say, Brandon, I think you're wrong. How can you say that if they're there, it's not because of him, because the quarterback is the leader. The quarterback's the one that's supposed to get them there. I don't I don't think that he is the number one guy. It'd be the other pieces surrounding him that would make maybe him better, not the other way around like it usually is. Like the Peyton Mannings, the Tom Brady's, they make the players better
he's not
around them.
I don't think Everett's going to deflate any footballs.
No, unless he goes on a weight loss program, which I don't think he needs.
But let's go to the other coin. What if he does throw a curveball? Give me the odds to what if he goes to Alabama? Because the first thing that comes into my mind when I think about Alabama was I was watching some of his film right before we went on, and I said to you, I'm like, man, could you imagine him with Alabama this year? That arm that he had just throwing to streaking wide receivers for the Fighting Irish. Picture that, but on the other end is Amari Cooper. I mean, Cooper's not going to be there. He's in the NFL now, but with what Lane Kiffin likes to do, sometimes likes to take the ball deep, Everett Golson could be a fit, right? Could he prove me wrong and say, you know what, Golson is a fit for me?
I think that it'd be another interesting spot to land because you don't see the style that Everett Golson goes with. You haven't seen that in Alabama, I don't think, for a while.
Alabama's been pro quarterback. Pro quarterback, they're more of a not pro style. They're a power back style where they got that running back in the backfield that's just going to pound yards, ground and pound, and then we're going to throw it.
Yeah, I mean, we're
going to run it, we're going to throw it, we're just going to beat you up.
I mean, they had Todd Gurley for about 12 years, it seemed like.
Well, Todd Gurley was Georgia. You're talking about TJ Yeldon.
Excuse me, Yeldon.
Mark Ingram
Yeldon. Yeah, Yeldon was another one. Honestly, I thought he was there before Ingram. He was there after Ingram. It's like, when are you leaving, bud?
But even I just think back, and this seems like eons ago, but Trent Richardson was an Alabama Crimson Tide. Some of these guys, except for maybe Mark Ingram, Yeldon, we can't talk about yet because he hasn't played NFL ball. But Trent Richardson, complete bust in the NFL. Complete bust. Just throwing it out there.
I wouldn't say complete because if he was complete, that means he did nothing. He was good in his first year with Cleveland. He was good stats-wise with his first year in Cleveland and didn't do anything good for Cleveland.
What about...
Not a lot can.
Let's get back to Everett Golson, though, with Alabama. You think
I think that if with what we just talked about, it goes to show they don't need to have a stud quarterback. They need to have some good ground and pound if that's what they want to stick with. And then Everett Golson, if he went there, a hypothetical situation that we don't see happening, no one really sees it happening, but if he went there, all he'd really need to do is be under center, hand off the football, throw the ball a couple of times, run it out of the pocket a couple of times, and you're going to be just fine.
It seems like a better fit. It does.
Potentially.
And I'm looking here, and here's the interesting thing. And this is if Everett Golson decides to go to Alabama. If he goes to Bama, he's going to be in a quarterback duo or a quarterback battle right away because not only does Alabama have a freshman in David Cornwell coming in, but they also have Jake Coker, senior quarterback. Where'd he transfer from, Brandon? That's right, Florida State.
See, I think that's interesting, but I think you also have to take a look at Florida State already has Sean McGuire, who's currently in line to succeed, Heisman Trophy winner.
He came in and won a key game last year when Jameis Winston was suspended for. Was that the crab legs game that he was suspended for? Because I know there was that one game. Whatever Winston.
It was either that one or was the other one about the when he stood up on the table and yelled his famous phrase.
It could have been that, but I mean. Point being, McGuire came in, played good under the center for the Florida State. I was thinking of their mascot, couldn't think of it, but he came in, played a good game. They won that game. So who's to think Everett Golson, even if he goes Florida State, he's going to be in a QB battle, right?
Yeah, he absolutely is. And also, they have redshirt freshman J.J. Cosentino, freshman DeAndre Johnson, and redshirt sophomore John Franklin III that are the other three FSU quarterbacks on scholarship. He is not a fit there. To be the fifth quarterback? I don't want to do that.
For what you're talking about, Golson?
Yeah, I'm talking about Golson. He's going into it's like a running back that's going into a crowded backfield already. I'm not taking him on my fantasy team. But he's not going to get the numbers that he would have gotten before.
Okay,
I don't get it.
I mean, to defend Golson in a way, most of those quarterbacks, like Franklin III, okay, he's a red shirt sophomore. Probably wouldn't play until his senior season because McGuire would play this year without Golson, and then McGuire would play next year as a redshirt senior. So that's 2 years there. And all the other ones are so young where Florida State was going to go with McGuire. So if Golson comes in, it's going to be a battle between McGuire and Golson. And I would like it to be a battle because if Golson comes in and they just give him the job over McGuire, I'm going to feel sad for Shawnee there because he had to sit behind Winston for how many years? Winston being the younger quarterback than him. Now he's got to sit out his junior year because Everett Golson comes in and feels like he's entitled to a starting job. I'm not saying he does feel entitled, but if they just give him the job, it's like, oh, you're just entitled to that because you were a starter at Notre Dame.
Well, I think that you look at Florida State, and if he goes there and they bring him in and they were to give him the starting job, if I'm Sean McGuire, I am pissed because of what I did for them when I was able to have my chance. And I look at my head coach and I go, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. I'm not getting the job over this guy. I'm the hometown man. Where's my hometown discount, quote unquote discount that he can't have because he's in college.
Discount.
But you know where I would say where is that? Where is that? Why am I not getting that over him? Some Notre Dame guy who comes in here, thinks he's, the you-know-what, and I just don't I wouldn't understand it. And I still don't understand why Golson, out of all the places that we mentioned of where he could go.
Are you going to say the same thing I am? Are you on the same wavelength as me, Brandon?
What are you about to say?
I was going to say, why not pick Georgia? Because I'm looking at the
why
quarterbacks
not? I mean,
right now.
None of the other ones seem to fit.
Georgia has, right now on their spring roster, on their website, they have 4 quarterbacks listed. Redshirt freshman, Sam Vaughn. They have redshirt sophomore, Bryce Ramsey. Another redshirt freshman in Jacob Park. And then the older, more veteran guy, junior, Fatten Buddha. That's your best bet. I mean, I don't even know who Buddha is, and he's a junior.
The Buddha. I think you rub his belly for good luck before the game. I
apologize if I'm pronouncing that name wrong, but wouldn't Georgia, I mean, fit-wise, Georgia to me, you think Austin Murray type of a player. That pocket guy, maybe not pocket, but shotgun guy who's going to stay in the pocket. Not a very mobile guy.
I think
Everett Golson may not be the best fit, but, I mean, if you're moving up from your junior, who I don't even know his name, to Everett Golson, that's a huge move. And plus, Golson could come into the Bulldogs and not have to battle anybody and could just win the job outright.
I was just going to say, along the same thinking as you are,
different team.
I think Georgia, because there's one, I don't see a quarterback battle. I see that you go there, you're the guy. I don't think there's as much pressure. I don't think that you're going to get the pressure that you would if you go to Alabama. No,
I would argue. No.
No, if you not compared to an Alabama or an FSU, you're not getting that.
I'm only saying that you're not going to get the national pressure. Most of your pressure at Georgia is going to come from Bulldog fans because them Georgia fans are passionate about their football. They remember when they used to be a top 10 team in the rankings. They want to get back to that.
Every college football fan down south bleeds their football team. Mm-hmm. That they don't go to church. I mean, they do, but they go and they probably talk about what just happened on Saturday.
Yeah, the Southeast is like the college version of Texas high school football.
Yeah, that's their religion. That is their religion. I mean, I remember when the Texas Longhorns were actually, I mean, they have the Longhorn Network, which is probably about worthless now, but I mean, that was it. Mm-hmm. That was it for Texas. And, now it's gone. But I think that you look at it, Georgia, yes, the pressure would be from the fans, but I think from the fans alone. I mean, they're not even a top dog in the SEC. I mean, look at it. It's a joke. I mean, Alabama owns it. That's it. I mean, that's all you have to say there.
Well, and I mean, Alabama is kind of slipping off a little bit. But to me, like I said, Georgia's your place to go because, like you said, not as much national pressure. You can come in, and if you do good and you're winning games and you're undefeated, that's when you're going to start getting the national pressure because ESPN's going to go, SEC undefeated. We got to talk about them. But in the end, I'm going to start this one off picking where we think he's going to go. He's going to pick Florida State. Just because of they've been in the limelight. He wants to be I feel like Everett Golson wants what Jameis Winston had. Jameis Winston, may it have been for the right or wrong reasons at times, was always in the limelight. When you are the quarterback of Florida State right now, you are a national icon in the eyes of the media. Everyone's talking about you, and that's hard to pass up. But like I said, for Winston, sometimes it was for his play on the field. Other times it was for the stupidity he was doing off the field. What do you think, Brandon? Where does Everett Golson go? What does he choose tomorrow?
Well, we talk about him being in the limelight, and he has played for Notre Dame now for a couple of seasons, and Notre Dame, huge fan base. I feel like wherever, especially here in the Midwest, they have a huge fan base. And I think that you also take a look at, he's been on NBC tons of times, so he has gotten national coverage then. So they have seen him play. They have seen him play on ESPN. He has already gotten the national attention. And I think he wants more. He wants to be the guy. He's not the guy, but he wants to be it. And if people tell him that, oh, hey, Everett, you go here, you'll be the guy, he's going to go with that line of thinking, with what they're telling him. He'll eat it up. He'll go where he thinks he can be the guy, even if he will never be that guy. And I think for that reason alone, Florida State is where he chooses. But it will not work out.
So, okay, we're going to move now from the gridiron, the football field. We're going to put some hardwood courts out. We're going to play a little basketball right now because in college basketball yesterday, we had some interesting things go down, Brandon. Some rule changes coming out, and we're going to get to the more notable ones. We're going to try to get to all of them, but I think the first and foremost you got to talk about is we're going from a 35-second shot clock to a 30-second shot clock. It's only 5 seconds, but that's around 8 more overall possessions a game.
I think it's great. I like it. I really like the idea of doing it. I think it speeds up the game. I think it makes you focus more offensively and be better offensively. And that's what one thing while watching ESPN and seeing what Seth Greenberg and Jay Billis say about it and said about it, you know, people don't want to watch a low-scoring game because they like offense. And I think that the rules committee must have seen that and was like, you know, we have to do something. Otherwise, it's gonna continue to go in this direction. And not that we're gonna lose fans, because college basketball is not gonna lose fans. Yeah. But we want to,
especially with how, and I say this from an opinionated standpoint, with how terrible the NBA has been. I'd rather watch college basketball than a professional basketball game any day.
You know, it's really sad, but that's the truth.
Unless
that's where it's going.
Unless you're watching the Warriors in the playoffs or the Bulls in the playoffs, regular season games in the NBA, I'm like, whatever, who cares?
And I said it a second ago. That is exactly where it's going. You talk to the amount of people that I talk to, and I talk to a lot of people, sports-minded people that have played the games, and they would much rather watch college basketball because of the fact, and I think this is number one, the parity. That you're always going to have someone new who's going to step up. This year, it's this team that's really good. In the NBA, Golden State's always going to be good. This team's always going to be good. I mean, and then you have your teams that Warriors are always going to be down at the bottom. And I think that's what people really get so upset about. And it seems like, you know, you play, 82 games in the NBA season, unless you're locked down. But I think that you look at that, and how many of those games really matter? You know, in college basketball, you have every game matter because you could, at the end of the season, they'll look at it and they say, this was a bad loss, this was a great win.
And that's exactly it. And I think the thing with college basketball that this just more about the shot clock that it's going to do is the more and more in college basketball, it looks like we're going towards more teams picking up the tempo a little bit. Where come down, most of these teams aren't using the entire shot clock, and when they do, it's all because, okay, this team played really good defense and they forced us to use the entire shot clock, and this is going to force the other teams that are like, okay, let's use the entire shot clock before, like, let's not even think about a shot until we get to like 12 to 10 seconds. Those teams, it's going to affect because they can't just sit there and say, we're just going to whittle down this game until the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think that one of the biggest things that they looked at is the physicality in the game as well. I think that's really, really interesting. Physicality in the post play.
Well, the next
block
rule,
and charge
I think
plays,
you're getting to the next rule.
Yeah.
The next one where they're going to expand the restricted area arc from 3 feet to 4 feet. They're going to give it another foot. And to me, I like that because how many times have I been watching college basketball games and I'm like, come on, that's a charge. That is a charge. And don't give it to him. To be honest, most of the time it's because, he didn't have his feet planted. But I feel with this moving the arc out a foot, it's going to force, okay, that was a charge. We're going to now have to say it's a charge because it was in the restricted area.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this really helps referees. I think a lot of these rules, not necessarily that they were put in place to help referees, but it looks like it may have been because now they have specific rules. If it's at this spot and they go down and they were set, that is a charge in this area. So many times I find myself and my friends find themselves yelling at the TV because the referee made a bad call or made the wrong call or what are you talking about? They weren't anywhere near the restricted area and this stuff. I mean, it clearly is going to be seen in the 4-foot arc down there in the post. And that's going to be something I think that's really going to help the referees out moving forward. But now that there's these rules, they make these rule changes, they have to stick to them.
Well, and I mean, not just that, another one that, this is the one, besides the shot clock, I honed in on this one, and it was the taking away a timeout from the teams in the second half. And when I was listening to Jay Billis kind of talk about it on ESPN, he mentioned how they're also going to do something similar to, I believe the WNBA does this, where let's say the media timeout is supposed to be at 8:59. Well, let's say it's the Terrapins versus the Buckeyes and Thad Matta calls a timeout at, let's say, 6:15. Well, okay, that's our media timeout then. If it's within such and such range of that media timeout, they're just going to say, that's the media timeout. We're not going to play for another 20 seconds, then have another timeout and break the flow of the game. That, to me, is crucial from a guy that's just watching basketball games. I hate it where it's like, cool, we come back from commercial after a timeout, they play for a little bit, up, random foul, up, media timeout. We got to go to another commercial.
Yeah, that was one thing. There was too much of that. There has been too much of that. No one really wants to see commercials during anything that they're watching because they just don't care. But I think that, especially when you're watching sports, and like you said it, they do it in the NFL all the time. They come on and they talk about the game, then they go to a commercial, then they come back, and they go, we're just about ready to get started, off to another commercial. Why in the hell did you come back to this game? Why did you not just stay in commercial the whole time or come back and keep it there?
That's why I love Red Zone. Never get a commercial.
Love Red Zone.
Yeah, that's to me, and I hate that. It just breaks up the flow. Now you get a more consistent just overview. And the last rule that
really quickly though, I just want to say that it's not necessarily for us, the fans. It's for the players. It's for the players to not get them out of their rhythm. That they need to get going. Stay focused and not lose their focus either. So we're talking about it as fans. I mean, it really doesn't matter for us. That's not why they're doing it. They're doing it for the players, for the coaches.
What about the last rule? And this one needed a little bit of explaining from you to me, where they approved they're going to experiment to add one foul per player in the 2016 postseason. How you described it to me, Brandon, is that means once we hit the postseason, the NCAA tournament, the NIT tournament, we kind of go more towards an NBA type game with foul situations where, okay, 6 fouls and you're out.
I love it. I think that a lot of these guys are going to the NBA. Mm-hmm. They need to start making it feel like an NBA game and playing in an NBA kind of not style's not the right word, but in an NBA way and like an NBA player. And an NBA player has 6 fouls. I almost forgot about that the other night watching the Rockets and the Clippers. I'm like, he's got 5 fouls. He's not.
I'm so used to watching college that I'll be sitting there with our good friend of the podcast, Dave Oster, and I'll be like, that's his 5th foul. Ricky, it's the NBA. There's 6. Oh, okay. Yeah. Just kind of
exactly.
Whatever.
But I like it. I like it. I also think that
not just comparing it to the NBA, just the situations of postseason basketball. When you get to the Elite Eight, the Final Four, and those big guys, and the way I see it is usually guys like there was one game where Jahlil Okafor, he's in foul trouble. You got to sit him on the bench. Now, if you have 6 fouls, if you're Coach K, hey, my star player has 3 fouls, 2 fouls. Usually, if you get 2 quick fouls, and I know this as an Illinois Fighting Illini fan because it happened to Nana Igwu all the time. You get 2 fouls, and then we got to take him out of the game. Now a coach can go, oh, 2 quick fouls? That's okay. We got 6. It's 1 more foul to work with. Just kind of a pull him over. Hey, just so you know, you got 2 fouls.
And it's
but now I don't have to take you out because I can just tell you that and know that, hey, 1 more foul, and then you will sit on the bench for a little bit.
And that's only going to be in postseason play, exactly where I think it should start. It doesn't need to be in the regular season, like but postseason is the most important place.
The Elite Eight, the Final Four, like with Duke, Jahlil Okafor was in foul trouble. He had to sit on the bench. Me, I was rooting against Duke, so I loved it. But it gives a little bit more of a competitive advantage where, okay, you can now get 1 more foul before you have to take that guy.
And it changes game planning for a coach.
Yeah.
Big time. That is huge for
like
the coaches.
Said,
it helps them a lot.
Instead of saying, I got to take him out, it gives you a little bit more flexibility. Plus, I feel if you're going to expand the restricted area zone, which to me, they're saying it's going to promote driving to the lane and make the game a little bit more physical, there's going to be a lot more fouls. Because of that, especially in postseason, because that's when everyone's going to thrive upon it and talk about it, you got to give a little leeway. Well, okay, we're making it a little bit more physical at the rim. Okay, in postseason, we're going to give you another foul to work with.
Yeah.
That kind of a thing. But overall, I feel like these rules it's a start in college basketball. To me, I'm one of the guys, Brandon, with the shot clock, just 25. We don't need a 30-second shot clock. You can do it in 25. Yeah. Am I wrong?
I think that 24 is NBA.
Yeah.
And it is so fast. It is so fast. I don't even, they come down the floor and they've got 10 seconds to run the play. Mm-hmm. But I think too that, eventually, and it's like, However, it's like you're weaning the players off the bottle.
Yeah.
And I
shave
think that
5 seconds here. In another few years, shave another 5 seconds.
I think you do that, and I think that as you gradually go to that, and you don't want to make it you really don't want to make it a mini NBA.
The minor leagues of the NBA.
You don't want to make it that, and if you make it that, people aren't going to enjoy it as much because we enjoy it the way that it is now.
Because now
it's specifically college, and there's a specific difference between the two.
Brandon, you changed my mind. Keep it at 30 because the one thing I just thought of, and this is from just hearing you talk, the one thing about college different than the NBA has that guy. Like for the Bulls, it's Derrick Rose. The Cavs, it's LeBron James. I'm going to take the ball. I'm going to drive. I'm going to score. Maybe kick out to a shooter on the outside. College is a lot more, okay, we're running screens, we're running plays, trying to get the best shot. Hell, look at the Princeton offense. I don't think the Princeton offense would be able to work with a 25-second shot clock.
Yeah. I think plenty of offenses might not be able to.
And this is college basketball offenses we're talking about. Yeah. So maybe 30 may be the right thing. Who knows? It's all going to depend on once we see it in a game. Once it actually happens in a game, we're going to be like, oh, okay. Cool. that is what it's going to be like. But like I said, for me, all of these rules, I'm not mad by them. I'm actually happy. I think it's a step in the right direction for college basketball.
I do too. I think a rule that's really interesting is one of them that we didn't mention, faking fouls. The committee discussed
flopping.
The committee discussed the growing issue of players attempting to draw fouls by deceiving officials or flopping, as you said. The committee proposed a rule that would allow officials to penalize faking fouls during the use of video to review a possible flagrant foul. And I think that that's good because, I mean, we see it in the NBA. It's ridiculous, but I think that in college you gotta get rid of it, because if you get rid of it now, you don't allow those bad habits possibly to form. So you get rid of it now. You get rid of it, take it away. Hopefully that will encourage them not to do it in the future when they move on to the NBA. So that's really interesting as well.
And Brandon, because we've got a little bit of time here on the podcast, let's bring up something that we originally were going to talk about. We almost axed it from the show completely. But like I said, since we got a little bit of time, we can talk about it now. Illinois football has been going through, I'm going to say, some troubles as of late, because this offseason, they had offensive lineman Simon Shianovic come out and basically go on a 10-hour-long Twitter rant against Coach Beckman and the Beckman regime at Illinois, basically saying that there's abuse, that Beckman's not treating players properly. They don't know about, he went on the CBS sports radio show of Doug Gottlieb and said that players don't even know the rules of their scholarship. And I know I'm going to put the link to that interview with Doug Gottlieb down below in the comment section for you guys that haven't seen it, want to see it. It's easy to listen to that and say, wow, that's terrible. But me, especially me as an Illini fan, part of me goes, there's got to be another side. We got to hear the other side. And with this, the other side is there's got to be an investigation done. Am I wrong?
There has to be an investigation. You can't have allegations like this that come from Shianovic and other players, former players as well.
Right now,
there's Nick North. Yeah. Nick North is the other one. You can't have these allegations and ethically not do anything. Mm-hmm. You can't do that. So there has to be an internal investigation, as Illinois will do, and see what they find. But we listened to it, Ricky. We listened to the interview that Gottlieb had with Shianovic, and you do. You feel, I know, I felt sorry for the guy. And just thinking about this interview right now, thinking about just what he's saying is true. Mm-hmm. Just taking that as truth, which you can't do these days. But it sounds horrible. I mean, it sounds absolutely horrible. But like you said, there's always another side to every single story. And I'm interested to hear that other side. And when it says that Beckman, it says everywhere, Beckman's, disappointed by the comments, upset by the comments. What are his comments? What are his comments to all of these things? And right now, PR standpoint, I wouldn't say anything, and I would let the investigation play itself out before I was to say anything, if I was to say anything, if I am Beckman.
So one thing I'm worried about as an Illini fan.
What is that?
I'm worried about...
You'll be even worse than what you were?
It's going to lead to that, but I'm worried about one phrase coming out of an investigation.
Scandal?
Lack of institutional control. How many times have we heard that after investigations and it kills a program? All you have to do is out of one say lack of institutional control. Boom. Here's the death penalty. I don't think it's going to get that far that we're going to get a death penalty like Penn State had. But to me, I feel like this comes at the worst possible time for Illinois, because we were coming off a season, Brandon, where it was a good season. We got 6 wins. We went to a bowl game. I mean, we didn't win the bowl game, but we were happy just to be in a bowl game. It was an improvement We were looking to improve going into this season, seeing if our quarterback, Wes Lunt, could be healthy for the entire season. And then this comes, and it's like, just exhale, where it's just like, really? Like, did we really need this right now?
You know, I have a question for you. Do you think that this is a scandal at Illinois, within Illinois Illini, fighting Illini football?
Define what you mean by scandal.
Scandal, scandal comes out, I think it's easy
Like,
to pinpoint scandal as like Jerry Sandusky.
Like,
that whole thing at Penn State, that was a whole scandal with the ways that it was hidden and it was covered up and people didn't do anything about it. And it wasn't... Bad things happened. Mm-hmm. People came forward, said those bad things that were happening, and nothing was done. That is a scandal to me. That is how I would define it.
So you're basically asking me if I think that...
Do you think that the same thing has happened, did happen, is happening within Illinois football right now?
I don't know. And the reason why I say I don't know is I don't know what's going on in that locker room. I'm not in the locker room every day. I'm not in the facilities every day as an Illini fan, but you hear things like, and this is way before this came out. This was like at the middle of the season. They had a promotional. Illinois on YouTube, their athletics does this like one-on-one stuff where it's like short YouTube videos talking to coaches, and Beckman did one, and the one thing I remember liking from it was when he's like, yeah, the first thing I did when I came in was there was a wall to my office, and I just took it down because I wanted players to feel like we have an open door policy where you can just come in. And then I hear that in that video, and it could be a PR stunt, but I really didn't think it was, because whenever Beckman talks in weekly press conferences before games, he's always talking about the Illini family and, we're building a family here and it's a family environment. And then these words come out, and I'm not saying that like, Simon, you're a liar. No, I'm not saying that. But these tweets come out, and it kind of makes me think, I don't know. I don't know what to think, because the groundwork has been laid, and you can see it in press conferences where it's like, we're talking about the Illini family. However, it could be a thing where that's what Beckman's like to the media, but behind closed doors. It's kind of like, the way I see it is that abusive parent. In the public, you wouldn't know, but behind closed doors, that parent could be totally different. And that's what we could be I'm not saying we are, could be dealing with here.
How badly does this hurt recruiting?
I don't know if it hurts recruiting. The thing I will say that it hurts the most is, okay, like I said, this season we got 6 wins. We went to a bowl game. AD Mike Thomas comes out and says Beckman will be back next season. Shuts up all the Beckman doubters, all the let's get them out of towners. And coming into the season, we're like, cool. We're going to have an off season where all off season for a year ago was, what does Beckman need to do to keep his job? How many wins we were each week discussing how many wins does he need to keep his job this season? We don't have that this off season. We can finally talk about, okay,
you have something worse.
What about Wes Lunt? And then this comes out, and it's like, great. Now we have another reason for Beckman doubters to say, you know what, just fire him. Just fire him. Because Simon said this in his Gottlieb interview, and I think it's an interesting point. He was a Zook guy. And I'm not saying like just because he's a Zook guy, he's trying to attack Tim Beckman, but coming in because he was recruited by Beckman when he was at Toledo, there was already a rift there. And that rift was not repaired when Beckman came to Illinois. Like I said, I'm not in the locker room. I don't know what's going on in the locker room. I don't know what goes on in the practice facilities. But it could just be a little bit of the past. It could be that too.
Well, you have a couple of guys come out in a negative way against Beckman, but you've also had people come out supporting him.
If you go, we had about, I think it was the middle of this week, the hashtag Proud Illini was trending nationally on Twitter. That's huge. And I feel like, yeah, Simon said like, oh, well, some of these players are afraid to come out because they're afraid not to graduate. Well, I just saw a tweet this morning of Beckman with 38 graduates.
Same thing.
That could be a PR stunt. Like, hey, look, we graduate 38 players, but part of me feels like that's true because Illinois is in the Big Ten. Big Ten is not the SEC, what we talked about earlier in this podcast. The Big Ten, and especially Illinois, I feel like part of me feels like it's why we've been bad for so long, is we care about graduating players, which is great. I love it. We care about graduating players rather than, hey, let's bring this guy in because we want to win. We want a guy who can help us on the field and in the classroom. That's Illinois, whether you like it or not.
I agree. I agree. I think that this is just really, it's a shame. It's a shame whenever you hear this anywhere. You know, it could have happened anywhere. Unfortunately, it's happening in Illinois.
I hope it doesn't stew. I hope they get an investigation. They find out. They do a thorough investigation. But I hope in the end it comes out clean. Nothing bad happens because I really, even though it hasn't been the most successful time, I've never hated Tim Beckman. There have been times where I've like, yeah, okay, let's fire him. And then the next time it's like, oh, okay, well, he's doing some good things. How I feel, though, is if we take a step back this year, and I'm saying on the field, that should be a big reason. If that's why we bring back out the pitchforks. Because last offseason, like I said, the pitchforks were out. People were getting ready to run them out of town. And then we made a bowl game. And then this.
I think that in the end, to put everything to rest is to make sure if you are Illinois and you are the people doing the internal investigation, you do a thorough internal investigation. You uncover, you don't leave anything unturned.
No stone unturned.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't. You can't do it because you want to bring, I don't know, I guess maybe this is a little too big of a piece. You want to bring kind of peace to the Illinois and the Illini community. And I think that if you can do that, it doesn't matter in the end who was right, who maybe fibbed a little bit, who didn't tell the truth, who wasn't as forthcoming, who kind of turned things in their favor with what they were saying. Doesn't matter. And find out what really happened and you know what? Be done.
If Simon is telling the truth, if he is, and that's what the investigation proves, then Beckman's not right for the job. That's as simply put as it is.
Yeah.
If Simon's right, then as an Illinois fan, you should sit there and go, well, Beckman's not right for this job. If it finds out that the player was lying, then okay, fine. But we're never going to find out unless a thorough investigation is done. The last thing I want to bring up about this is I just typed the situation into Google and posted today as we're recording this podcast. There's an interesting article on sportingnews.com that reads, Simon Shianovic, in an example of how social media gives a voice to student athletes. Before Twitter, a player couldn't do this. Couldn't come out and go on a 10-hour Twitter rant. And because of that Twitter rant, now this is in the national spotlight.
I think that's dangerous, though. I think that's dangerous that you have to be careful as a student athlete because you can really hurt your. But I'm just saying
he was done with his last year.
It doesn't matter. Though. It doesn't matter though. It can hurt you going forward. You want a job, don't you?
Yeah.
He wants a job
do
somewhere.
Things professionally.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not going on to play professional ball, you're still going to have to go out and be a professional in the working world.
This is me reading the lines, and like I said, if you haven't listened to the interview with Doug Gottlieb down below in the comment section or down below in the description, from what he said, maybe he went to the university like he was talking about and they weren't doing anything, and he just sat there and thought, well, something's got to be done. And his Twitter was open and he just voiced his opinion.
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying you got to be careful.
Yeah.
You always got to be careful as anybody.
I'm reading what's been said, and that might be what happened. You can read into it like that. But that's going to do it for this. Was a jam-packed episode for the Primetime Podcast.
Talked about a lot.
So tell us down below in the comment section what you think about anything we talked about today. Everett Golson situation, where he's going to transfer, the rule changes in college basketball, and the situation going down right now for the Illinois Fighting Illini football program. And as I look at my laptop, all I see is that big orange eye from my background on my desktop. But that's going to do it for the first ever edition of the Primetime Podcast. We will be back next week at the same time here on the MVP Network. I want to thank everyone for listening, and as always, have a good day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this MVP podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Most Valuable Pod for more great podcasts.